Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Imagine you were accused of something huge, something the entire world thinks you did. What would you do? Would you just shut up? Or would you be yelling to everyone that you didn't do it?
It's a question we all hope we're never faced with.
Right. It's a tough one. And that's what we're looking at today. The hours and days after the assassination of President Kennedy, focusing on Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who was accused of killing him. And we're going to try to figure out why even the people closest to him weren't so sure he was innocent.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case because it kind of flips what we think we know about how innocent people act, right? You'd think they'd be freaking out trying to clear their name, but Oswald was different.
Totally. So you've given us a bunch of great sources to use for this: firsthand accounts, investigative reports, the whole nine yards. But first, let's talk about what the Dallas police did, because, man, they moved fast.
11 and a half hours. That's all it took for them to arrest Oswald and put together what seemed like a pretty solid case.
That's crazy fast. It seems like they had their guy.
It did seem that way.
So they track Oswald's movements that day
Yeah.
and even earlier that week. Like, he went to visit his wife Marina in Irving, but he left his wedding ring. Why would he do that if he was planning, something like this?
Then there's the whole thing with his neighbor, Wesley Frazier. He drove Oswald to work that morning, and Oswald had this package. Said it was curtain rods.
It was the rifle, the one they think he used.
Exactly. And that wasn't even the only lie he told the police. He said he didn't even own a gun.
Two little lies that kind of mess things up, huh?
Oh, yeah. From an investigator's standpoint, those little lies are huge red flags. Makes you wonder, if you're innocent, why lie about something small like that? It makes it seem like they're hiding something much bigger.
It's almost like a subconscious slip, like something deeper is coming out. And then there's more evidence, and the case against Oswald seems even stronger.
Oh, absolutely. They found a money order he used to buy the rifle, and when they looked at his handwriting, it matched. And then there's that famous picture of him in his backyard with the rifle and communist newspapers.
That picture, I mean, come on. What was he thinking? And then he says it's fake, that they just stuck his face on someone else's body.
I mean, was he really serious? Or was that just like a last-ditch effort to throw people off? Who knows, really?
So it's Saturday, 2 days after the assassination, and the DA, Henry Wade, he comes out and says Oswald is officially charged with killing Kennedy, and he's going for the death penalty.
You have to remember the whole world is watching, waiting for answers.
Yeah.
And they want justice, right?
Definitely. So now Oswald's in jail, and we have these accounts from his mom, Marguerite, his wife Marina, and his brother Robert, who all visited him.
And the weird thing is, they all say he was like strangely calm, you know, detached, almost like a robot.
Seriously. You'd think with those charges you'd see something: anger, sadness, fear, anything. But he's just blank.
Yeah, and even Marina, his wife, she knew him best, and even she thought it was weird. She said if he was innocent, he'd be screaming it from the rooftops, doing everything he could to prove it, but he wasn't. She thought it meant he was guilty.
So what does that mean? Was he in shock? Trying to play it cool? Or is it something deeper? Some kind of psychological thing we just don't get?
It's a question historians and psychologists are still debating. Could be he was just trying to cope, dealing with all that stress and fear, or maybe it's a sign of something more serious.
It just doesn't fit, and like things couldn't get weirder. Something totally crazy happens when they're moving Oswald to the county jail. And that's when a new guy enters the picture, Jack Ruby.
This Jack Ruby was a nightclub owner in Dallas. Kinda a local character, known for being a bit unpredictable. But anyway, he was totally wrecked after Kennedy was killed. And he got fixated on the thought of Jackie Kennedy and her having to go through a trial.
And he wasn't exactly keeping a low profile after the assassination. People saw him crying at Dealey Plaza, talking about how upset and angry he was.
He was a mess, basically, and he wanted to save Jackie Kennedy from any more pain and prove himself, like he said, show the world that a Jew has guts, and that's what pushed him to do what he did.
It's kind of crazy how things lined up. Ruby had to go to Western Union that day to wire money to one of his dancers. Think about it. What if the line was long? Or something held him up? Things could have been so different.
But nope, he finishes up just as they're bringing Oswald down to the basement of police headquarters to move him. They had all this security, but everyone got distracted for a second when they were getting the cars ready.
And that's when Ruby saw his chance. He walked right past the guards into the basement, and as Oswald came out of the elevator,
Ruby shot him. One shot right in the stomach. It was chaos. Everyone jumped on Ruby, and there's Oswald bleeding on the ground.
it's hard to believe it really happened, this crazy violence on live TV for the whole world to see.
And with Oswald gone, well, figuring out what happened to Kennedy just got a whole lot harder.
So Ruby said he did it to save Jackie Kennedy from the trial. He even mentioned reading that open letter to Caroline, Kennedy's daughter, and how it got to him.
He also said he felt he had to do it for the Jewish people, show they were strong and brave. It's hard to tell what he really felt and what he just made up after.
So is it just him snapping all that grief and this need to protect Jackie Kennedy?
Or was it something planned out? Some people think he was connected to the mob, and they made him do it to keep Oswald quiet.
The world was in shock after Kennedy was killed. Everyone wanted answers, someone to blame. And since there wasn't a clear explanation, people started coming up with their own theories.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? When something awful happens and we don't understand it, we try to make sense of it ourselves, even if it means making things up.
And since Oswald never had a trial, he couldn't tell his side of the story. That just makes things even more suspicious. And it's crazy, right? All these years later, and we're still talking about it, JFK's assassination, it's like, we can't let it go.
It's more than just a crime now, it's like it's become this huge cultural thing. It makes us think about power, the world, whether things happen for a reason, all that.
I think that's it. When something this awful happens, we want a simple answer. We want someone to blame. But with this, it's so messy, it's hard to figure out what really went down.
And that's unsettling, right? Not knowing for sure. But it also makes us realize maybe we don't know everything.
It makes me think about all the stuff we see and hear every day, News, opinions, different sides to every story. How do we know what's real? How do we cut through all the BS?
That's the million-dollar question these days. We got to be smart about it. Question everything. Look at all sides. And remember, sometimes the best stories aren't true.
It's like, we've got this puzzle, but some pieces are missing. We can try to force it, make it fit, but it won't be the whole picture. Or we can just admit we don't know everything.
And yeah, not knowing can be frustrating, but it's also what keeps us looking, keeps us asking questions, makes us want to learn more.
So as we finish up this deep dive into JFK's assassination, here's something to think about. Maybe it's not about finding all the answers. Maybe it's about learning how to ask the right questions, being okay with not knowing everything, and realizing that sometimes the search is just as important as what you find.
I like that. In a world where everyone's yelling their opinions, being able to think for yourself, question things, and see the gray areas, well, that's a superpower.
And that's something to remember, even after this deep dive is over. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.